Well, good morning, everyone. It is great to be with you today. Today, I'm going to be doing for this video an introduction to the book of Leviticus. I felt it would be worth just taking a few minutes to do that. First of all, again, congratulations on finishing up the book of Acts. So far, we've read the entire book of Genesis, Mark, Exodus, Acts, and now we're back to Leviticus. And so we're kind of alternating from between the Old Testament and New Testament. So to this point, we have come to the Israelites have exited Egypt. They have come to Mount Sinai, and that's where we begin to pick up the rest of the story. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction here to the book of Leviticus, and I'm going to read. I have an NIV study Bible. And I thought it would just be beneficial for you to understand a little bit more about the book of Leviticus, because it's probably, for many people, it can be one of the more confusing books, but it really is a book that is rich in helping us to understand the holiness of God and God's desire for holiness. And so hopefully you'll understand this a little bit better by the time we're reading the book of, and finishing the book of Leviticus. So let me just kind of read through this introduction here for you. So Leviticus receives its name from the Septuagint, which is the pre-Christian Greek translation of the Old Testament. So the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, and then it was translated. The Septuagint is the Greek, translated into the modern Greek language, okay? And it means relating to the Levites. So its Hebrew title is the first word in the Hebrew text of the book and means, and he, or the Lord, called. Although Leviticus does not deal only with the special duties of the Levites, it is so named because it concerns mainly the service of worship at the tabernacle, which was conducted by the priests, who were the sons of Aaron, assisted by many from the rest of the tribe of Levi. Exodus gave the directions for building the tabernacle, and now Leviticus gives the laws and regulations for worship there, including instructions on ceremonial cleanness, moral laws, holy days, the Sabbath year, and the year of Jubilee. These laws were given, at least for the most part, during the year that Israel camped at Mount Sinai, when God directed Moses in organizing Israel's worship, government, and military forces. The book of Numbers continues the history with preparations for moving on from Sinai to Canaan. So they've come to Sinai, God's giving them instructions, and part of the instructions is known as the book of Leviticus, where God gives instructions to the tribe of the Levi, the Levites, and how worship, the priestly duties, and all those things should function. Okay, so theological themes. Let's take a look at this. Leviticus is a manual of regulations enabling the holy king to set up his earthly throne among the people of his kingdom. It explains how the Israelites are to be the Lord's holy people and are to worship him in a holy manner. Holiness, in this sense, means to be separated from sin and set apart exclusively to the Lord for his purpose, in his service, and for his glory. So the key thought of the book is holiness, the holiness of God and his people. They must revere him in holiness. In fact, the word holy appears more often in Leviticus than in any other book in the Bible. Pretty interesting, isn't it? In Leviticus, spiritual holiness is symbolized by physical perfection. Therefore, the book demands perfect animals for its many sacrifices and requires priests without deformity, a woman's hemorrhaging after giving birth, sores or burns or baldness, a man's bodily discharge, specific activities during a woman's monthly period. All of these things may be signs of blemish or lack of perfection and may symbolize human spiritual defects, which break spiritual wholeness. The person with visible skin disease must be banished from the camp, the place of God's special presence, just as Adam and Eve were banished from the Garden of Eden. Such people can return to the camp and therefore to God's presence when they are pronounced whole again by the examining priests. Before they can re enter the camp, however, they must offer the prescribed perfect sacrifices, symbolizing the perfect whole sacrifice of Christ. After the establishment of the covenant at Sinai, Israel represented God's kingdom on earth, the theocracy. And as its king, the Lord imposed his administration over all Israel's life. He so regulated Israel's religious, communal, and personal life as to establish them as his holy people and to instruct them in holiness. In Leviticus, special attention is given to Israel's religious ceremonies and rituals. Their sacrifices were to be offered only at the divinely designated sanctuary, which symbolized both God's holiness and his compassion. Only the appointed priests were to officiate at Israel's sacrifices, and it was also the duty of the priests to instruct the people concerning the proper form and meaning of each sacrifice. Some suppose that the Old Testament sacrifices were carryovers and adaptations of an older sacrificial system developed by agricultural peoples who thought that humans needed to please the gods by feeding them their crops, flocks, and herds. But the Old Testament sacrifices Israel was to bring were specifically prescribed by God and received their meaning from the Lord's covenant relationship with Israel, whatever their superficial resemblances to pagan sacrifices may have been. They did indeed include the idea of a gift, but this is accompanied by such other values as dedication, communion, propitiation, or appeasing God's judicial wrath against sin, and restitution. The various offerings have different functions, the primary ones being atonement and worship. And so that helps you understand a little bit as we just start out that yes, there might have been some vague similarities to old sacrificial systems that maybe other pagan people had, but this sacrificial system is specifically designed on purpose by God for His people, for them to recognize and learn some very important things. And one of which, the most important, is this idea of being a set apart people and being holy and serving a holy God. So I hope that helps you a little bit as we go in and we begin to take a look at the book of Leviticus. Excuse me. You will want to kind of take our time and just absorb it and understand the 10,000 foot view, the 10,000 foot theme of holiness and the reason that God is doing this with His people. And so we'll dig into that a little bit more in the days to come. All right. Thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed this introduction.